Are you actually standing on your own 2 feet, or um, are you just leaning on a series of external crutches to get through your day?
That is the big question, isn't it?
It really is. Whether you're prepping for a high-stakes boardroom meeting, or navigating a complicated personal relationship, or honestly, just trying to find your footing in a world that constantly asks us to conform, that is the question we are putting on the table today for you.
It's basically the ultimate test of self-reliance. We're unpacking what it actually means to build a life where you aren't merely surviving off the fumes of other people or organizations or ideologies,
Right.
but where you're truly generating your own gravity.
And to get to the bottom of that, we're focusing on a single, highly provocative source today.
Yep.
It's this essay from September 2009 by an author named Xue Feng.
Right, translated by Kinyu, if I recall.
Yes, exactly. And the piece is titled Establishing Oneself in Society Through Rich Inner Content. And the author opens this entire argument with a really striking nature metaphor.
Oh, the butterfly one, yeah.
Yeah. They point out that grass, flowers, butterflies, bees, and birds, they all survive only through their own light wings, their own diligence, and their own fragrance.
It's a beautiful image. I mean, the butterfly doesn't ask the wind for permission to exist, right?
No, it doesn't.
Nor does it ask the meadow to carry it. It just uses its own biological mechanisms to navigate whatever wind happens to blow. It is an entirely self-contained unit of survival.
Okay, let's unpack this a bit.
Yeah.
Because reading that immediately made me think of, like, building a character in a massive open-world survival video game.
Oh, I like that analogy.
Right. So imagine you drop into this harsh pixelated wilderness. If you don't take the time to gather your own resources and craft your own armor and, level up your own core stats, you literally cannot survive the wilderness alone.
You'd just get crushed.
Exactly. So out of sheer desperation, you're forced to join this massive established guild run by higher level players.
And yeah, you get to hide behind their shields, but the trade-off is huge. You have to do whatever the faction leader says. You have to laugh at their terrible jokes, hand over your loot, and totally compromise your own playing style just to stay inside the safety of their walls.
Basically, you become a dependent.
Exactly.
And the text establishes the antidote to that dynamic right from the start with this core principle. It says, when one's foundation is established, the Tao emerges. When the heart is rich, one finds peace.
So it's an inside-out process.
Exactly. The author is arguing that true societal establishment is inside out. You don't acquire independence by attaching yourself to a powerful external entity.
You generate it yourself.
Right. You cultivate an internal foundation so robust that you simply do not need the safety of the guild's walls.
Which really begs the question of what that internal foundation is actually made of, right? Because the essay doesn't just leave us with vague philosophical platitudes.
No, it's actually quite specific. Yeah, it defines this foundation as 3 very specific treasures that you need to stand tall and live with dignity. And those are soul wealth, spiritual wealth, and material wealth.
And we should really highlight that inclusion of material wealth there. This text is not advocating for, like, pure asceticism.
Right, it's not telling you to abandon society and live in a cave.
Exactly. It completely acknowledges that we live in a physical world and we need physical resources. However, it argues that material wealth has to be balanced equally with the soul and the spirit.
Because the alternative the author presents is, well, incredibly dark.
It's pretty grim, yeah.
The essay states that without these 3 inner treasures, a person essentially becomes a slave or a sycophant.
Strong words.
Very strong. It argues that without a rich internal world, you survive only by selling your time, your spirit, and your conscience. You're reduced to using flattery, hollow words, and opportunistic scheming just to maintain this fragile position in society.
And the author takes that warning and applies it to the largest macro-level structures we have.
Oh, yeah.
The text asserts that depending on any external institution for your survival or your identity is a glaring symptom of spiritual and material impoverishment.
And they explicitly list out some major institutions here.
They do. The essay lists attaching oneself to a country, a religion, a political party, an organization, or an ideology as a literal form of hiding.
Okay, we should probably pause here and frame how we're looking at this for you, the listener, because obviously those are foundational pillars for a lot of people.
Oh, absolutely.
So exploring this text means looking impartially at the author's philosophical argument about the mechanism of dependency itself. We are not evaluating the specific merits or flaws of those institutions or taking any political sides here.
Right, we're just reporting on the ideas. The author is simply posing a structural question. If your political party or your corporation or your chosen ideology just vanished into thin air tomorrow, would you still have a core identity?
Or would you just collapse because you use that institution as your entire skeletal system?
Exactly. It is all about identifying your psychological crutches. When someone lacks inner content, they outsource their identity to the group. They let the ideology do the critical thinking for them.
And they let the organization dictate their worth. But I do struggle a bit with the severity of the language here, specifically regarding the workplace.
Okay, where are you getting caught up?
Well, the author claims that without this inner content, you're reduced to selling your time or energy to survive, which forces you to compromise your conscience. But isn't selling our time to survive just the definition of having a regular job?
I mean, yes, technically.
So why is the author so harsh about the basic reality of making a living within an organization?
To understand that severity, we really have to look at the psychological state of the worker the author's describing. The text isn't condemning the act of participating in an economy.
Okay.
It is condemning the source of your security within that economy. So imagine two employees in the exact same corporate meeting.
Right, I'm picturing it.
The first employee has no inner wealth, no independent skills they're actually confident in, no personal philosophy, no spiritual grounding. Their entire sense of safety comes from keeping this specific job.
So when the boss proposes a terrible or maybe even unethical idea, that first employee is just going to nod along and flatter the boss.
Precisely. They sell their conscience because the terror of losing their external crutch is just way too high. They are a sycophant out of necessity.
Oh, wow. Okay, I see.
Now look at the second employee. This person has cultivated massive inner content. They've mastered their trade, they read deeply, they have a rich spiritual life, and they know their own value.
So they're engaging with the organization from a posture of actual power.
Exactly. They offer a genuine skill to the market, and if the boss proposes something unethical, they can push back or just simply walk away.
Yeah.
Because their foundation is internal.
The organization is just a place they currently choose to apply their talents, not the source of their right to exist.
You nailed it.
That reframes the entire concept of work. It's the difference between working out of a desperate need to be protected by the hierarchy versus working as a sovereign individual choosing to exchange mastered skills for resources.
And that vulnerability, that reliance on an external hierarchy, bleeds directly into our personal lives as well.
Oh, definitely.
The author's philosophy on dependency doesn't start at governments or corporations. It extends to our most intimate connections.
Yeah, the essay takes a highly provocative stance on romance.
It really does.
The text argues that in the institution of marriage, both partners often depend on each other simply because their own inner content is drastically insufficient.
The author is diagnosing a very common relational pathology here. People often enter into lifelong bonds because they are terrified of facing the world or themselves alone.
Right. They're spiritually or materially impoverished, so they use the other person to fill the void.
Exactly. Placing the entire burden of their lifelong happiness directly onto their partner's shoulders.
They look at another human being and demand, "You must be my foundation." And the result the author predicts for this dynamic is a life filled with fear, struggle, and despair, ultimately destined to end in tragedy.
It's a bleak prediction.
It is. When I read that section, it vividly reminded me of a three-legged race, but one where both runners have severely sprained ankles.
Oh, that's a brilliant way to picture it.
Right. Like, if you both lack inner content, you aren't two complete individuals running side by side enjoying the wind in your face. You're just desperately leaning your entire body weight against each other so you don't collapse into the mud.
And the moment one person stumbles or needs to rest,
The entire structure violently crashes to the ground.
well, your visualization perfectly highlights a concept in psychology known as the locus of control. And that's essential for understanding the author's grim prediction here.
Okay, unpack the locus of control for us.
So, your locus of control is essentially where you believe the steering wheel of your life is located. If you have an internal locus of control, you believe your own actions and your inner state dictate your outcomes. You feel grounded.
But if your locus of control is external, the steering wheel is in someone else's hands.
Exactly. And that creates agonizing daily anxiety. If your happiness, your stability, and your sense of worth are entirely dependent on an external factor, even a beloved spouse, you are incredibly fragile.
Think about how this manifests in just a normal daily routine, right?
Yeah, exactly. If your spouse wakes up in a bad mood or has a stressful day at work and becomes withdrawn, someone with an external locus of control will absolutely panic.
Because their foundation is shaking.
Right. They'll scramble to fix the partner's mood not out of genuine empathy, but out of a desperate need to stabilize their own emotional environment. They cannot stand firm because their foundation is entirely outside of their own body.
So true partnership, following the logic of this text, is only possible between two people who already possess rich inner content individually. Two people with their own working ankles, choosing to run side by side rather than using each other as crutches.
The author is really driving us toward the realization that whether it's a political party or a spouse, you simply cannot outsource the heavy lifting of building your own soul.
Which brings us to the actual mechanics of doing that heavy lifting.
Right. How do we actually do it?
Yeah, if we strip away the ideologies, the institutions, and the codependent relationships, how do we actually build this rich inner content from the ground up?
Thankfully, the author provides a highly specific 8-step roadmap to achieve this state.
Yes. And the roadmap is fascinating because of how comprehensive it is. It doesn't solely focus on, like, meditation or solely on hard labor.
Right. And I think to understand the mechanism behind the method, we can group these 8 pathways into 4 logical categories so it's a bit easier to digest.
Good idea.
We have the philosophical, the aesthetic, the practical, and the social.
Okay, let's start with the philosophical or transcendent pathway. The text directs the reader to seek and follow God and to listen to the teachings of diverse historical sages.
And looking at the text impartially, the author specifically names a very broad spectrum of historical figures here.
Yeah, they list Jesus, Buddha, who is referred to in the text as Shakyamuni Laozi, and Mohammed.
By directing the reader to these figures, the author is providing a mechanism to expand the mind beyond immediate, petty survival concerns.
Right.
Engaging with the highest moral and philosophical frameworks humanity has produced forces you to contextualize your life. It builds spiritual wealth by giving you a macro perspective.
So you aren't easily crushed by the micro stresses of daily life.
Exactly.
Okay, the second group is the aesthetic pathway. This involves reading beautiful prose and poetry and actively listening to beautiful melodies and songs. And honestly, this is the one I initially wrestled with.
Oh, really? Why is that?
Well, so what does this all mean for our daily priorities? It's kind of wild that the author puts listening to beautiful melodies right alongside mastering a survival skill. Like, why mix the purely aesthetic with the gritty and practical?
You mean it feels a bit out of place?
Yeah, it feels like a luxury, not a foundational survival tool.
I get that. It seems like a luxury until you understand how the human nervous system processes aesthetics. If we connect this to the bigger picture, the author is addressing the whole human here.
Okay, how so?
A survival skill keeps you fed, yes. But art and poetry build the soul wealth we mentioned earlier. When you engage with profound art, it exercises your capacity for awe and emotional nuance. It literally creates an internal reservoir of satisfaction.
And if you don't have that reservoir?
If you don't have it, you will constantly seek chaotic, extreme external stimuli to feel alive, which leads you right back to external dependencies like consumerism or toxic drama or social media.
Oh, wow. Beautiful melodies regulate the inner world. They give you a baseline of peace, so you aren't hunting for dopamine in the external world. That makes perfect sense. And that perfectly balances the third group, which is the practical pathway.
Right, the gritty stuff.
This is where the text demands that we master a survival skill or technique. We must be responsible, we must pursue excellence, and we must exhibit pure grit.
Yes.
The text literally includes the word diligence, with an exclamation point as one of the required steps.
Diligence is the anchor. You cannot meditate your way out of needing to eat.
Nope.
If you only read poetry and listen to melodies, but refuse to learn a practical skill, you will eventually starve. Or you will be forced to beg for resources from someone else.
And the moment you are begging for resources, you are back in the trap of dependency.
Precisely. The practical pathway builds the material wall that protects the aesthetic and spiritual life happening inside.
It is a complete ecosystem. You need the practical skill so you don't have to sell your conscience to survive, but you need the poetry and the philosophy so you actually have a soul worth sustaining in the first place.
Beautifully said. And that leads to the final category, the social and behavioral pathway, which basically dictates how a person with rich inner content interacts with the world.
Right. The text advises expressing inner truth, goodness, beauty, love, and sincerity in all actions, big or small.
And it demands that you remain forever humble.
And crucially, that you make yourself useful to society without calculating personal gain.
That last part is huge.
That point, being useful without calculating personal gain feels like the ultimate test of whether you've actually achieved independence. If you're constantly keeping score, calculating, if I do this favor for my boss, I will get this promotion, you're still playing the sycophant's game.
Exactly. You are still treating your actions as currency to buy external security.
But if your inner content is rich, you can afford to just be useful, purely because it's the right thing to do.
You're operating from a surplus rather than a deficit. Calculating mind is always operating from a fear of scarcity. The rich heart operates from an abundance of capability.
Okay, let's follow this roadmap to its conclusion. Say a person actually implements these steps.
Okay.
They study the sages, they let poetry rewire their nervous system, they master a complex survival skill through sheer diligence, and they act with total sincerity. What happens to their relationship with the material world they've been working so hard in?
The essay reveals its ultimate conclusion regarding material wealth right here, and it presents a profound paradox.
Oh, I love a good paradox.
The text states that the highest state of existence is, and this is a quote, to own nothing yet possess everything.
To own nothing yet possess everything. On the surface, that sounds like an impossible riddle.
It does, but the mechanism behind the paradox becomes clearer when you view it through the lens of capability versus accumulation.
Okay, unpack that.
The promised result of enriching your inner content is that you become unshaken by external influences, constraints, or limitations. Most people try to feel secure by hoarding possessions, titles, relationships.
They want to own as much of the external world as possible.
Right. But everything you own also owns a piece of you. It requires maintenance, it creates anxiety about losing it, and it ultimately ties you down.
It's the difference between carrying an incredibly heavy backpack full of every single tool you might ever need versus having a master key.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, if you have the master key and the internal knowledge to acquire what you need only when you need it, your hands are completely empty. You own nothing. But because of your immense capability and peace and skills, the entire world is available to you. You possess everything.
That synthesis loops perfectly back to the author's opening metaphor of the meadow.
The butterfly.
Yes, the butterfly does not hold the deed to the meadow. It doesn't attempt to hoard the flowers or build a fortress around the grass. It literally owns nothing.
But because it has developed its own light wings, its own internal capability for flight, it possesses the absolute freedom to enjoy every single inch of that meadow.
Exactly. True establishment in society is an internal state of capability, not an external state of accumulation.
The moment you realize your capability is internal, the fear of the external world just evaporates.
It really does.
The core takeaway from this entire philosophy is that if you want to stand firm, you have to systematically dismantle your reliance on external crutches.
Stop waiting for an institution or a corporate ladder or a romantic partner to act as your foundation.
The actual mission of living is to cultivate your own soul, your own spirit, and your own material wealth from the inside out through a rigorous combination of art, philosophy, diligence, and practical skill.
It requires a fundamental shift in how we direct our daily energy. Instead of waking up and asking, what external thing can I attach myself to today to feel safe?
Right.
The independent mind asks, what internal capacity am I cultivating today so that I no longer require safety?
Yeah. To bring this all the way into our current reality, I want to leave you, the listener, with a final thought to mull over, building on the author's roadmap.
Go for it.
So the text lists those 8 pathways to build inner wealth. But think about the specific architecture of our modern world today. The algorithms dictating our social media feeds, the hyper-targeted advertisements, the 24-hour outrage cycle of the news.
Oh, they are exhausting.
They are. And these systems are explicitly engineered to foster external dependency. They're constantly telling us what product we must buy, what influencer we must follow, or what tribal ideology we must furiously defend just to form a valid identity.
The modern economy is largely built on manufacturing a sense of inner poverty and then turning around and selling you the external crutch to temporarily fix it.
Exactly that. So if the ultimate state of wealth is to own nothing yet possess everything through a rich inner life, imagine what would happen to our hyper-consumerist economy if people suddenly opted out of that cycle of validation.
It would completely change the world.
Could the ultimate act of rebellion in today's chaotic, algorithmic world simply be shutting off the screen, taking a walk to listen to a beautiful melody, mastering a quiet skill without monetizing it, and finally standing on your own 2 feet?
Opting out of the noise to cultivate your own mind might just be the most disruptive and powerful choice a person can make right now.
It is a challenge definitely worth taking on. Well, we had an absolute blast exploring the depths of this text with you today. Keep leveling up those inner skills, keep questioning the crutches, and we will catch you next time.
Until next time, take care, everyone.